who's responsible for this, and what do we need to do right now to make sure that in the future that doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
So you give me what your system is. Let's go over it right now. Now all of a sudden they're telling you what their system is, and they're taking 100% ownership. So that's the thing that I feel like is so unbelievably important about questions.
We're a big jujitsu family. That's how we get our physical fitness.
Mhm.
So I'll be done at the police station probably around 3:45 or 4 o'clock helping my friend. I got to be at jujitsu at 5 o'clock, not enough time to run home. If I didn't have this Panda planner or I didn't have a plan of attack on how I was going to make my sales calls, what would we do? And then project number three was like, I always got to start Monday off right. I always tell our coaching clients, I don't care if it's telling your wife you love her, working out, making your 10 or 15 sales calls, like never miss a Monday. Because if you
Yeah.
miss a Monday, it throws off the whole week. So that's when I put it in my calendar. He's bilingual. He's really big for his age. So he's pretty athletic. He's great with his hands. He's a kind kid. I don't care if he's 6 months behind on math. And so through this crazy convergence of events, and I won't go into the whole backstory, but I had a friendship with a guy named Matt Boudreau. He was on my podcast. Yeah. So the questions are actually on the left-hand side of the planner when you get in here.
Okay,
It's like,
show us real
yeah.
quick.
So it's like, what's my 90-day push, right?
Okay.
So my 90-day push right now, we're in a season where we want to grow the coaching business. So my
Right.
90-day push is new coaching clients.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Scott Groves, thank you so much for being our guest for the second time on the Mike Litton Experience. Super excited to have you here, bud. We had such a great time last time that we had to have you back on. Super excited to talk about everything you're working on. Front Row Dads, Apogee Schools, which are amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
And also the Panda Planner that you just came out with. That's really cool. I had never even heard of Panda Planner before this morning. There you go.
Yeah, using it every day. I'm being a good soldier and using
That's
my own
awesome,
tool.
dude. That's awesome. So there was a guy, one of the success coaches came out the other day with this is how much they made without a checklist, and this is how much they made with a checklist, right? And the number was like 20 times the number. I mean, it was nuts.
Yeah.
And I know from being in production and doing a lot of volume, I know how important it is every day to plan your day, like literally plan it down to the minute. So thanks again for being here, bud.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. And whoever you were interviewing, that guy's speaking my language. Because one of the things I always tell our coaching clients, I run a coaching program for loan officers, is that nobody is smarter than the checklist, right?
Yeah.
Been doing this for 25 years, funded over $1 billion in loans, I've coached 1,000 loan officers over the last 9 years. And still to this day, when I get a new contract or a new file under contract, we call it in California in escrow.
Yeah.
I still pull out the checklist. Okay, is there solar? Did we miss something on the credit report? Are you a junior or a senior? Where is your good faith deposit coming from? Like, just nobody is smarter than the checklist. And every time I'm in a rush and I take that phone call from my car when somebody goes under contract, we miss something and then it blows up the rest of the deal and creates a 3 or 4 star experience instead of a 5-star experience. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the book, The Checklist Manifesto. I would say I've read probably 10 books that really like changed the course of my business or my life. And the Checklist Manifesto is one that's a must read for anybody who actually treats their business like a business.
So let's talk about the checklist for just a second, just real quick.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that a lot of people deal with that are in our industry is they're scattered, right? They're going so many different directions. Like you just mentioned, you were on the phone in your car and something gets missed.
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about the checklist for just a second. So a checklist is literally a system, right?
Right.
So all you're doing is going back to what works. You're going back to what is thorough, for instance, right? And if you stick to that, because let's talk about this for just a second. You know how busy you are, and you know how busy a lot of these people are in the mortgage business. Okay,
Yep.
and we're going to talk about front row dads in a bit, right? You're a dad, you've got kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got investment properties, you've got coaching clients. You have so much going on in terms of the numbers of plates you have spinning. And I do too, right? And things get missed. Things
Absolutely.
get missed. So one of the things that I think is important is talk a little bit about why systems work for you, and then talk about the discipline that it takes to stick to it.
Yeah. What's interesting, one of my favorite coaching isms or maxims or quotes is from my friend Hal Elrod, who wrote the book The Miracle Morning.
Love
And the
that book.
coaching, yeah, great book. The coaching ism is every success you've ever had was preceded by a system. So
Guaranteed.
I don't care what that success was. Like if you want to lose weight, okay, you probably just didn't say like, all right, well, I'm going to eat healthier. It's like, no, I go to the grocery store on Sunday, I meal prep, I have healthy meals available. When I travel, like my personal trainer is trying to get me to do this. Every time I travel, just have an ice chest because I drive back and forth from LA to Las Vegas. It feels like once a week. Well, now I have an ice chest of like a little cooler, cost me $100 on Amazon that plugs into my car. And I've got some protein shakes in there and some sugar-free beef jerky and whatnot. And not surprisingly, now that I have a system, I don't stop at Jack in a Box in Baker and get, 1,000-calorie, horrible piece of shit burger, right?
Right.
And
Carl,
Dr. Pepper.
shout out to Carl's Jr. in Baker, baby.
I know, man.
Frequent flyer.
That's like my go-to. So like every success you're going to have in business, in your personal life, if you're trying to improve the relationship with your wife, there's a system. She doesn't know what it stands for, but over here, I've got this little calendar where I just fill in, bubble dots, like those old Scantrons, and I have an HWHL. So my wife doesn't know what it is. It's happy wife, happy life. And every day I'm trying to do something that I would have normally pawned off on her, right? So it's like, I'm eating my lunch. I'm in there. Oh, you know what? Let me change the laundry. Let me make the bed. Let me like police up something in my kid's room that would have maybe fallen to my wife. But it's like, that's a system. Saying I love you, having date night on the calendar. All
it's the
those
tiny things, baby.
It's the little things,
tiny
man.
things. It really is. It's not, we think we have to go out and conquer the world. Right. To get in our wives' good graces. It's not that. It's not that. It's pick up your friggin' underwear. Right. Yeah. It's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't want to be gross, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right. We're talking about real life stuff, right? Even if all you do is talk your kids into doing something that takes one thing off mom's plate. Okay.
Totally.
Unbelievable.
And it's so important. My wife's love language is quality time, right? The 5 Love Languages, another book that changed my life. As long as I give her like 30 minutes a night of like decompress, we check in, we hold hands, we sit on the couch together, and we just like exchange thoughts on our day before we go into like some TV programming or whatever. As long as I do that, she'll let me get away with anything I want. Like I can smoke cigars. I can go play poker with the guys on the weekend. I can do jujitsu at 6 o'clock in the morning and leave, getting the kids ready for school to her, as long as she gets that quality time. But for me and you, who for a living, we talk all day.
Yeah.
It's really hard to have the mental energy to do that half hour, download with your spouse at the end of the day,
Absolutely. 1,000%.
And so you got to have a plan, because if not, my wife and I have gotten into these seasons where like a couple months will go by and we're like, hey, we're kind of like ships crossing in the night. Like we don't feel connected. We're more like roommates than, spouse and lovers. Yeah. Like, all right, time for like talking and then some sexy time. And like, we got to get back to the process, because anything in your personal life or your business life where you have seen success, you had a process that preceded it. Plain and simple.
And let's be honest, that wheel falls off, right? You're out of balance.
Yeah.
You're out of balance, and it affects other things, right? Less so for us because we're really good at compartmentalizing and that kind of thing. But it starts to affect things, right? It affects other things. And so all of a sudden, right? So what you're talking about is the discipline of making sure that you stick to that system, right? Have a system and then stick to it. Right? Do you guys have date night every week?
We don't have it every week, but I do have it on my goals checklist over here. I have this big spreadsheet of like all of our goals. So I need to get in this year 300 jiu-jitsu classes because like if I'm healthy, everything else seems to go better. We've got to get in. I put in 12 quality date nights because for us, that's like a little staycation or a vacation or kind of a grand night out. That's my thing. I want to have 12 kids meetings per kid where I do something fun with just the kids individually. 50 million in funded loans, 150 coaching clients, and 15,000 Panda planners sold. So it's like I constantly have my goals up here that I'm tracking because if I don't have that system of looking at refreshing my goals every day when I go to jiu-jitsu, I go there, I put a little tick mark on the calendar date that I went
on
to
the checklist. On the checklist. Come on now.
If you don't have a checklist, like you are failing in business. Like so many people are like, oh, an appraisal comes in below the contract price. Oh, it's going to ruin my whole day. I have to have these calls. If an appraisal comes in below the contract price, my LOA handles it because she has a checklist of like, here's how I calculate the shortage. Here's the email that goes to the borrower and the buyer's agent is CC'd on it. Here's the text message that gets started just in case Scott does have to jump in. And these things that we think we're so special because we're the loan officer and we're the only one who could possibly handle it. It's like, no. If you turn it into a checklist, there's a $20 or $30 or $40 an hour employee who can handle that task. If we take 10 minutes to put it into a format, a canned email and a checklist, and then you can pawn off that work for the rest of your life for 10 or 20 minutes worth of work that you put in upfront on the checklist or the spreadsheet.
So one of the things that I learned early on when I really got busy and started becoming, nationally ranked as a producer and all that kind of stuff, right? Was I figured out fairly early on that if I trained my people to maintain our standard, my clients would gleefully work with them. Why?
Yes.
Because I'm gone all the time and I'm constantly getting pulled in different directions. I'm constantly being interrupted, all that kind of stuff, right? Which is my problem as far as discipline, right?
Yeah.
But what I found was as long as I trained them, and it was a regular thing, like we would train them weekly, okay? Because standards are a big deal. You know this. And so the Scott Grove standard is high, man, and they have to maintain that. As long as they maintain that, your clients are perfectly fine working with an extension of you, which is your team.
Yeah, 100%. And something that you're articulating that maybe you didn't even realize is that when you manage to the standard, it's so much easier than managing to the person.
Oh, totally.
So, for example, if we get a contract before 2 p.m., the standard on our team is that disclosures go out same day, the appraisals ordered same day, the initial email to the client goes out same day. We jump on a Zoom with the client same day. Now, if the contract comes out in after 2 o'clock, it has to happen within the next 24 hours. When that's the standard, my partner's name is Leah. When that's the standard, if we don't meet that standard, I can go to Leah and be like, hey, I saw that this deal went under contract at noon yesterday. We didn't get on the Zoom with the client to go through our whole pitch deck on, welcome to the contract process. Here's who's going to work on your file. Here's everything to expect. Are you a little overwhelmed? Do we have too much on the plate? What happened? Was the client not available? And now I'm managing to the standard instead of being like what I would have done in my 20s was, hey, Leah, what the hell's wrong with you? Why didn't you get to this client yesterday? Yeah. And we all know that's a downward slope of
it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere.
You're losing the team member. But when you're managing to the standard, like, hey, our turn times are X. Every time, for whatever reason, I've changed companies every 2 to 4 years in my career. Every time I interview with a company and they're like, well, our underwriting turn times are 24 to 72 hours. It's like, no, I'm not going to work for this place. That's not a standard. Mm-hmm. If your standard is we underwrite in 48 hours, okay, cool. Now we have something to manage to. But when corporate, quote unquote, or a wholesaler for those that are out there in the broker world are like, our turn times are 24 to 72 hours. That's not a standard. That's a hope. And hope is not a plan. I'd much rather have somebody tell me the standard is we underwrite in 24 hours. And if we don't meet that standard, you'll hear from us as to why. Underwriter was out, we had some capacity issues. Okay, that's totally fine. Like our team misses the standard all the time, but you have to have the standard in the checklist because if not, people just kind of like put it off, and then they fail.
So talk about not meeting the standard for a second. When you don't meet the standard, how soon after you discover that Are you on it? And talk about what that conversation sounds like.
Yeah, I think you got to talk about it in the moment, same day. Just like, hey, we didn't meet the standard. What needs to happen to triage this situation right now? And then, once every couple weeks, myself and my partner and the LOA and, my executive assistant and whatnot, we're doing a download of like, okay, maybe the standard for XYZ is 24 hours. Is that a little unrealistic? Do we need to change the standard? Are we understaffed? Do we need to take some more stuff off the plate? I meet with my executive assistant and my marketing guy every single day at 8:45. Sometimes that meeting's 5 minutes. Sometimes that meeting's an hour and a half, because I have found that with I'll call them entry level employees, even though they're amazing people and they take so much off my plate. If I'm not meeting with them every day just to do a quick little huddle, okay, Chris, what are you working on? Annie, what are you working on? Where are there conflicts on my schedule? What can I offload to you guys because I have a pretty busy day? If I'm not doing that every day, then like I kind of lose command and control and they lose direction.
Right.
Now with Leah, my partner who's been doing mortgages for 20 years, I probably only need to check in with her once a week or once every other week because she's more self-sufficient. But with your LOA, with your processor, with your executive assistant, with your marketing assistant, you probably need to be doing a daily or every other day 15-minute huddle. And again, sometimes that's going to go to like an hour because you have a big project you're working on. But just those check-ins as a leader, this is something I didn't understand in my 20s. And so I would drive quality employees out of my world every couple of years. And my goal now is like, Chris, my marketing assistant's been with me for 8 years. My executive assistant's been with me for 3 years. I hope Leah's with me till the end of my career, just because I've gotten better at leading people.
Yeah. So this is a regular thread that we're talking about in this podcast. We have a lot of leaders on, right? We have a lot of people that have led large organizations. We have a lot of people on here that are teaching leadership. They're consulting, they're coaching, that kind of thing. And one of the things that we're talking about, and I'm writing a book about it, by the way, is the power of questions. Because one of the things that you have to do when you're a leader is you have to sit with your people and connect. The best way to engage and connect them is to ask them questions, right? How are we doing? How are you doing? What is it that we can do to help you get to where you want to be? Okay. I just had this conversation with a teenager on Saturday night. Okay. And the reason I was invited to come meet with this teenager is they're going through a tough time with him and they're not able to reach him. But they were convinced, these are friends of mine, they were convinced that I could. And I did. And the only way that I did it was to ask. You have to care enough to ask. Talk about that for a second, because you're like the king of dialogue, right? And you're really good at connecting. You're coaching your people all the time on how to do this. Talk about how you go about conducting those sessions and why it's so important to engage them.
Yeah, I'll give you my favorite example, right? And I learned this back when I was a regional manager for New American Funding. I was managing 40 loan officers and 17 support staff, along with my partner, Justin Bale. And that year, Justin and I, personal production, 200 million, branch, 400 million, region, almost $1 billion. There was a lot to manage. And what we decided was, so that the other loan officers could learn from everybody else's pipeline, and so that we could have some level of cohesion, we did an all-in Wednesday morning pipeline call where we went through every single loan in the branch and then the region, right? So it was like, I don't care. You can be self-employed effectively and make your own schedule and all this shit loan officers tell themselves. Wednesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10:30, you will be in this office or you will be on Zoom with your camera on. That is the only thing we require of you. And what we found as we were going through the pipeline is we would just ask the question everybody asks, hey, are we on track? Oh, yeah, we're on track. Next week later, hey, the Litton loan, is that on track? Yeah, it's on track. Third week, oh man, we're going to be closing late. This blew up, that blew up, this blew up. And what Justin and I realized is that every processor, every LOA has their process, right? So the processor is like, yeah, of course we're on track. There's just these 7 things we do right before closing to verify the insurance binder and make sure the 4506T results came back correctly and whatnot. And I don't fault them because that's their process. And so what we did was we strategically changed the question to, okay, what if we had to close today?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to shut your mouth. And then the processor would look at it and be like, if we had to close today, I don't have the 1004D back on the appraisal because the water heater wasn't strapped, and I don't have this, and I don't have that. That's a better question, because now you're getting to the root of all the things that could hold up the deal. That was a very simple, we went from a binary question of, are we on track, yes or no, to what if we had to close today? And all of a sudden, it brought all the issues to the surface. And all of a sudden, instead of 15% of our deals closing late, we went to like 5% of our deals closing late, because then the LO knew when to get involved, when to start asking the questions, when to start pushing on the realtor. Or, and this is very hard for loan officers to do, we would be sitting in that meeting and I would be like, Nick, right now, 10 days into the contract, we know this deal is closing late. The client is like not comfortable signing digital disclosures, or we already know that there's massive inspection issues and appraisal issues, and they called out, the rotted deck and stuff. Right now on day 10, this is the day to call the buyer's agent, the listing agent, the buyer, and be like, hey, I'm foreseeing some problems. Let's move closing back by a few days or a week, or just know that we have some challenges. And then what happens? The realtor wants their check. So now they're engaged in solving the problem versus you calling them 24 hours before closing and be like, well, the underwriter and the appraiser came up with, they don't care what the underwriter and the appraiser said. It's the loan officer's job to get the thing closed and get the check in the realtor's hand and get the client in the house.
Figure it out,
right?
Figure it out, right?
When we started asking that question, what if we had to close today? And processors would sometimes be like, Scott, that's not fair. We've only had the contract for 4 days. I'm like, yeah, I know. What if we had to close today or this Friday? They'd be like, well, I still need this and this and this and this. All right, cool. Let's go get that. Right. And so to your point, Mike, just by asking better questions, it immediately transformed how we ran our pipeline meeting and how much more efficient our branch was.
1000%. And when they come back to you and they say, you know what, that's not fair, what you need to do is go, okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever in your life ever been involved in an escrow where the escrow was a 30-day escrow and it had to close in 5 days? Life is full of curveballs, right?
Right.
These things are imperfect. We're dealing with human beings who have things happen. It does happen, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to life, right?
And so then what was beautiful,
would we rather be prepared for it?
Right.
Or would we rather be standing there going, okay, now what are we going to tell the realtor that referred it to us? Come on, man.
And then what was beautiful, Mike, is like, as we asked that question, without badgering them, without, beatings will continue until morale improves. What happens was the processor and the LOA would move a bunch of those backloaded tasks up to the front end. And then all of a sudden we were like, oh, okay, now by a new standard, it's easy for our branch to close deals in 15 days. So when I can call a listing agent with confidence and be like, hey, I know this is a flip. I know the investor wants out of this house as soon as possible because they're paying a daily carry cost. We can absolutely close in 15 days. They're like, oh, well, how can you do that? I hear that from every lender. And then I would go into this explanation of how we run our pipeline calls and how we preload all the work instead of backload all the work. And they would trust us. They'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, man. I wish every lender did that. And then boom, we get the contract accepted.
So how big is it? Just talk about this for a second. How big is it that you can call a realtor and you're 10 days, you're 7 days into escrow, okay? And that's a 30-day escrow. And you call the realtor and go, hey, we're ready. We're clear to close.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like the number one way to build relationships, right?
Hello, right?
Yeah. Now you have to make sure when you
over deliver. Come on,
you have to make sure when you make that call, you're actually ready to close, because then
absolutely.
Say, okay, cool, can we close Monday?
Yeah, but
yeah,
you have to follow. You have to follow through. But how huge is that, right? Because here's the thing: if you start being remarkable, they start remarking about you.
Oh, that's a good line.
You with me?
Writing that one down.
You start being remarkable, they start remarking about you, right? What you do is you deliver and you deliver and you deliver. And when you continue to deliver and you continue to exceed expectations, right? They start talking about it, baby. They go back to the office over a cup of coffee or whatever, right? Energy drink, whatever, right? And they're talking about you. They're talking about how awesome you are. And when they have somebody that walks in the door and says, you know what, my current lender that I use all the time, spends 30 days to get deals done, and we're lucky if they get them done in 30 days. I've got this buyer that needs to close in 5 days. I have no idea what to do. They're going to go, oh, you need to call Scott.
Yeah.
Here's his number.
And what's beautiful is I remember from basic training back in the Army, they were like, one F up will wipe out 10 attaboys.
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to start building that bank of attaboys, because every loan officer has the story of like, oh, I had this great realtor. They referred me all their deals and we screwed up on one deal and I never heard from them again. Well, it's like, yeah, that happens, but it probably happens because the 10 deals you closed with them early were kind of mediocre. Yeah. And then the one that you screwed up, they didn't have that bank of goodwill to forgive the F up because they didn't have 10 attaboys. You were like, you were serviceable, but you weren't great.
Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody makes a mistake. And you earn, right? You earn trust. You earn trust when the risk is low. You cash in on that trust, or you leverage that trust when things are hitting the fan, okay? When it's hot, okay? That's when you're leveraging what it is that you've built up, that connection, that trust that you built up, you're cashing in on it. So
100%.
So when you do these types of things, all you're doing is taking out an insurance policy. If you like insurance, in California, we love insurance, right?
Yes.
If you like insurance, you're taking out an insurance policy that realtor will never use anybody else, right? And if anybody ever comes to them, and by the way, let's be honest, if you don't perform, there's 900 people behind you that are in the mortgage business that are ready to pop up.
Yep.
Right? Yep. You think they don't have 2, 3, 4, 900 in backup? They absolutely do. So you'd better deliver if you're going to succeed. This is a highly competitive business.
Yeah. I'm stealing this all from Chris Ledley, who's my leader over at Neo Home Loans. Shout out to Chris. He's probably the best leader I've had in the mortgage space. He calls it moments that matter, right? Yeah. And what happens for most loan officers is we get into the routine of doing our thing. And it's like, well, yeah, of course the appraisal came in at the contract price. That's what we do. Of course the loan got approved because I'm good at my job. I did a great pre-approval. Like, I don't let people down.
Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com, and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today.
But what loan officers, especially seasoned people like us, what we miss is these moments that matter, where there should be a like higher emotional state, or we can manufacture this increased emotional state where when the approval gets done, when the appraisal comes at the contract price, when the deal is clear to close, that's your opportunity to call the buyer's agent, the buyer, and the listing agent, make them the hero of the story and be like, hey, Mr. Listing Agent Mike, just want to say the appraisal came back at the contract price. I know we were a little bit worried about this one because every comp is now at the top of the market. You guys, the realtors, did a great job getting the deal under contract at a price where everybody felt they were winning, and our appraisal could bring in the deal at the contract price. Thanks for being awesome. By the way, is there anybody else in your world who needs to get motivated about buying a house with you by getting pre-approved with me? And most loan officers aren't making that call. So if you're making those calls 3, 4, 5 times per transaction, what you're doing is you're building that bank of attaboys where you're manufacturing a heightened emotional experience for the buyer's agent, the listing agent, the buyer, and you're just winning them over. So when you do ask for the referral, it's impactful. So when something does go wrong and you have to ask for an extension on the contract, this isn't the first time the agents have heard from you, and they really do not care. Like, I've never had an agent badmouth me if I need to ask for an extension, as long as I've been keeping them updated.
Right.
If the first time you talk to them in the transaction is 2 days before you're supposed to close and you're asking for 4 extra days because something came back with the VA, blah, 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 now you're up shit's creek.
That's it.
if you're using these moments that matter, these heightened emotional states to communicate with them, they'll give you a lot of leeway and still use you as a referral partner.
Yeah. So let's think about this for just a second. For people that maybe are not in the industry or they're newer in the industry, let's think about this for a second. How many people does that borrower know? How many people does that borrower's agent know? How many people does that listing agent know? How many people does the title officer know? Title rep. How many people does the escrow rep know? Okay. This is all about it, dude. I had situations where people would call me up from escrow and they'd go, "Hey, we have an absolute clown for a lender and we need somebody who will do what they say they're going to do." And the escrow officer would go, "Have you talked to Mike? Do you know him? You want me to have him call you?" I had her completely trained on how to refer me, to control the lead, the whole thing. Okay. Now, every single time she did that, she had an office full of flowers when she came back. I don't know how that happened.
Right.
Right. But here's the deal. You take care of the people that take care of you, and you can turn every single deal into 7. You just have to be on purpose about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we got so we're recording this on a Monday. I got 4 referrals since Friday. 2 of them I have no chance of capturing them. You know, the 2 people are very unhappy with their loan officer. They feel like the education and everything is just dog doo-doo. But both of them are locked in with a bank on a 7-year arm that I can't touch, right?
Right.
3 of those 4 people were referred by past clients.
Yeah.
I still took, you know, in my Friday night over the weekend, half an hour to educate them, ask them to send me the loan estimate, just if there was any room in there for them to save money with the lender they're going with. And, you know, I'm not going to get those deals, but what I'm doing is I'm planting those seeds of future refinance. I then called the past client that referred me and said, "Hey, Will, this guy, Will Duffy, love him to death. Really appreciate you sending over your buddy Robert. You know, he's in a really good spot. I had him send me all the paperwork. I evaluated it. He's, you know, not happy with his loan officer, but he's getting a good deal. At least he's not getting ripped off. He's already a week and a half under contract. I told him just keep going the process with that because he already has the appraisal. I appreciate you thinking about me. Keep sending them over to me and I'll help these people at some point, even if it's just some upfront education." And like, I know that just, you know, 30 minutes worth of work per deal. So 2 hours worth, you know, 2 out of those 4 of those deals we're going to get. And the 2 that we didn't get, the referral source, which was a past client, is going to continue to refer me, right? And that's how you build and stack relationships on top of each other instead of like, "Oh God, I lost a relationship. I got to go find another one. Oh, I lost a relationship. I got to go find another one." True professionals, they're stacking relationships, right? And, you know, my goal this year is $50 million. You kind of alluded to it. Like, my wife and I, we opened a school. I run a full-time coaching program. I'm an investor in Home IQ and Fledge, which are tech companies that support the mortgage industry, very involved in a mastermind called Front Row Dads. If I'm being totally honest, I'm probably working a full 2 days in the mortgage industry doing the lead generation, following up. Now that's spread out over the course of the week. But if I was like, how much full-time effort am I really putting into the business? It's probably about 2 days. Now, in fairness, I give up 50% of my money to Leah so she can work 60 hours a week in the business. But we're only able to do that because my job is to lead generate and build the relationships and set the systems and the process so that my assistant, my LOA, you know, at this point, 30, $50 million in business doesn't seem like a lot. Like if I was all in just doing loan officering, I could probably do 100 million, but I have other goals with the other businesses I've invested in. I don't mind giving up $400,000 a year in overhead so that other people can run my coaching business. Other people can run the nuts and bolts of the mortgage business. Other people can build the tech platforms that I built in. Like, this is how you scale and leverage, by like setting the process, setting the system, bringing in the right people, and then letting them run with it. Right.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
you just, I always coach my loan officers in our coaching program. I'm like, hey, if 4506T results come back no record, who chases that down? And they're like, well, my LOA does this, and sometimes I got to do that, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, you do not have a system. If you don't know 4506T results come back no record, it's the LOA or the partner or the prosecutor's job to be like a dog with a bone and fix that. If you're jumping in as the loan officer, you might as well be a $20 an hour employee, because
Mhm.
that's a $20 an hour employee task. Like you should not have the time in your life to get involved in the ops piece and micromanage. That just means you're hiding behind busy work instead of productive work.
Right. And by the way, the busy work thing is an easy place to go to,
Oh yeah.
right? It's all comfy and it's sweet and it's right, it's warm and it's all these things, right? And it makes you feel good because now you feel like you're irreplaceable.
Yep.
What? Right?
Yeah.
What is that? So if I'm talking to that person, I'm asking them. So let me ask you a question. Why are you doing that?
Yep.
Why are you doing that? And is that the most productive thing for you to be doing? Right?
Yep.
Are you seeking discomfort in your profession? Seriously, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm asking them questions. Where's your system? Who's responsible for this? And what do we need to do right now to make sure that in the future that doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
So you give me what your system is. Let's go over it right now. Now, all of a sudden, they're telling you what their system is, and they're taking 100% ownership. So that's the thing that I feel like is so unbelievably important about questions. Pull it out of them, get them to where they own it, right? If they
Yeah.
say it, it's real.
I'll give you
Okay.
an example. And this is why I've been using this system called a Panda planner for like 5 years. It's a daily planner. I write down my schedule and everything. And we wanted to have a planner for our coaching company because I really believe the physicality, and for those of you that are listening instead of watching on YouTube, I'm holding this up. The physicality of writing down, okay, what are the goals? Did I work out today? Where's my call list, the 13 proactive sales calls? What does my schedule look like? I really believe in a physical planner. Our buddy Todd has a Win by Noon. There's some other ones
Yep.
out there. I really think a physical planner of getting out of the distraction of your email and your phone and all of that stuff and putting it down on paper. Like humans, we're still tactile creatures. Like social
Mhm.
media has hijacked our brain to jump on the phone over and over and over again. But writing things down, working with our hands, hugging our kids, like this stuff really matters. And so we did a joint venture with Panda Planner because they didn't have like a sales version. So now if anybody just goes on Amazon and looks up Panda Planner Sales Pro, it comes in red or black. You'll see it there. I put this down. So today, this is a perfect example, Mike. Today, I have a personal appointment I got to handle at 3 o'clock for a friend of mine. He's embroiled with the police. It's a big mess. I'm going to go support him at 3 o'clock. That's going to take about 45 minutes. I always leave by 4:45 to go to my kid's 5 o'clock jujitsu class because that's important to us. We're a big jujitsu family. That's how we get our physical fitness.
Mhm.
So I'll be done at the police station probably around 3:45 or 4 o'clock helping my friend. I got to be at jujitsu at 5 o'clock. Not enough time to run home. If I didn't have this Panda planner or I didn't have a plan of attack on how I was going to make my sales calls, what would we do? I'd get on my phone. I'd go on Instagram. I'd respond to some emails that somebody else is probably responsible for. But instead, I have it on my calendar that from 4 o'clock to 4:45 until I get an iced tea and walk into jiu-jitsu, I'm going to make some proactive sales calls from my car,
Mhm.
right? Just sit in the parking lot, call, I'll probably leave 5 voicemails for realtors. I'll probably have 2 quick conversations and 1 long conversation. But instead of wasting that time and
Mhm.
feeling productive because I checked my email, it's like, no, I'm going to actually be productive instead of just being busy. And I've got my little physical call list here and I already wrote down what realtors I'm going to call today. And it's like making sure that we don't have a bunch of these TW activities, which I call time wasters.
Mhm.
You will fill your day with TW activities,
Yeah.
constantly checking email, getting involved in email threads you don't need to do, getting involved in operations tasks you don't need to do, scrolling through social media, pissing away time. But it's like there's so much free time in every loan officer's calendar where if you're focused, if you have a good digital planner and a good physical planner, you'll have a plan. And then you'll just be more productive and you'll be, oh man, I'm still getting off at 5 o'clock every day. And I went from 1 million to 1.5 million or 3 million to 4 million in fundings. And I don't feel like I'm working that much harder, right? Because we're just more productive, less BS busy.
I got you. So do me a favor. Let's talk specifically about the Panda Planner. But before we do, I want you to share with everybody that's listening, because you're a top producing dude, right? You're getting a lot done. You're incredibly productive. Talk about the questions you're asking yourself when you're sitting down with your Panda planner and you're figuring out your day. What questions are you asking yourself? Like, how do I get to 50 million? What do I have to do today to get to 50? You with me?
Yeah.
Talk about those questions that you're asking yourself, because those are powerful, man.
Yeah. So the questions are actually on the left-hand side of the planner when you get in here.
Okay,
It's
show
like,
us. Show us real
yeah.
quick.
So it's like, what's my 90-day push, right?
Okay.
So my 90-day push right now, we're in a season where we want to grow the coaching business. So my
Right.
90-day push is new coaching clients. Am I getting on podcasts? Am I sending out marketing emails? Am I asking my own coaching clients for referrals? So our 90-day push, January through March, is new coaching clients. What's my weekly call topic, right? Well, my weekly call topic to realtors is getting them into a piece of software, Home IQ, to
Right.
upload their database. So when I'm calling my realtors this week, I'm talking about Home IQ. I'm talking about past client follow-up. I'm talking about the open house tools and whatnot. And then, because Hal's a buddy of mine and I really believe in the miracle morning, in the morning, I'm going into like, what are my miracle morning activities? He calls them savers. So silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing.
Right.
So before I look at my email at around 8 o'clock, I'm spending just 30 seconds to a minute in silence, right? You might do prayer, you might do meditation, silence. All right. Then my affirmations. I write this down in the journal every day. I deserve to be physically, mentally, and financially healthy and abundant, right? That's just like a good way to start the day. I'm writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. I'm making sure I have at least an hour of sweat time on the calendar. So I do jujitsu from 6 a.m. to 7:30, get in my workout every day. Okay. Am I reading something that's bettering me? Usually that's like a daily podcast or Audible or something like that. Am I scribing? Am I writing down my thoughts? Well, Panda Planner solves that. And then visualization. Okay, I just sit in the car after jiu-jitsu for about 2 minutes and I like think about my day, think about what I was going to talk about on this podcast, think about what my sales calls are going to look like. And then I write down the big 3 projects or the big 3 rocks of the day, where it's like, if I get through these 3 big rocks for today, I'm going to feel like today was successful. So number 1 was quality podcast with Mike where I'm focused, right? Don't have email popping up. Don't be looking at my phone. So you were on my project list for today. Number 2, Neo, we just changed our parent company. There's a sales call that I normally don't attend that I have to be on today because I have to see what offerings this new parent company has on the jumbo side and the non-QM side. So one of my big projects for today was Neo calls to make sure I totally understand our suite of jumbo products. And then project number 3 was like, I always got to start Monday off right. I always tell our coaching clients, I don't care if it's telling your wife you love her, working out, making your 10 or 15 sales calls, like never miss a Monday. Because if you miss a Monday, it throws off the whole week. So that's when I put it in my calendar from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. This is when I'm going to make the focused calls, right? On Wednesday, my barber can only fit me in at 3 p.m. My day is going to be done by 3 p.m. because I'm getting my haircut, then my kids getting my haircut, then we go to jiu-jitsu. So it's like, all right, I got to rearrange what part of the day I make my sales calls on. And on Wednesday, if you were to look at my digital calendar right now, I got an hour and a half blocked out on Wednesday from 11 to 12:30 before I host a weekly mastermind lunch at 1 o'clock, where I've got to get those sales calls out of the way or like business just suffers, right? I've got 7 people on my payroll in the various businesses that are all supported by my mortgage revenue. If I don't make my sales calls and do that proactive green time activity, everything else just falls apart. The school doesn't work out. I don't have money to invest in the tech companies. My coaching program suffers. It's like, I got to lead by example and generate the business.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. So on the right side of the Panda Planner, what's there?
Rewriting my schedule for the day.
Okay.
And even though I have a super dialed in digital calendar, and for those that are watching on YouTube real quick, I'll share a screen just so they can see how wild this is. This is my calendar for the week.
Yeah.
So, even though I have everything here in digital form, I'm shocked how many times in the morning at about 4:45, I'm transposing from my digital calendar to my physical planner just in case I got to run out of the office and take it with me, make sure I don't miss any calls, and I don't want to keep jumping back on my phone and getting distracted by Instagram notifications. So I write down my calendar it's shocking how often I write that down. I'm like, I don't really need to be on this call. Oh,
Mhm.
Leah can be on this call. I'm double booked here. Oh shoot, I got to move this around and move that
Mhm.
around. And then right next to that is the proactive call list. How many
Mhm.
people I'm going to call today? And then below that, I just have the end of the day review, which is like, what were 3 of my wins from the day? And then Kaizen, this idea of getting better every day. Where
Mhm.
could I have gotten better? And I'll be honest, usually what I'm writing in that is like, shouldn't have had a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Didn't need to eat empty carbs at lunch.
Right.
Could have been a little bit more graceful with my kids or my wife, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the goal, is just to like get your thoughts down onto a daily page and then execute on that plan.
Well, what's interesting though is if you write it down, you tend to remember it. If it's in
Yep.
your digital planner, you tend to forget it,
Yep.
right? And it's
100%.
something I want people to understand. It comes down to how you use your physical body, and that scribing thing is a big deal. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about front row dads for just a second. Front row dads is something you're very, very proud of. Let's talk about that for just a second.
Yeah, so shout out to John Vroman. If you're a father or you know any fathers in your life, you should be getting them. You don't have to pay for the mastermind, but at least check out the podcast Front Row Dads. He does an episode every week about just basically being a better person, a better husband, a better father. And the ethos of Front Row Dads is fathers who are business owners, not business owners trying to make time to be a father.
Right.
So I've been involved with them since they started about 8 or 9 years ago. And a lot of my coaching and a lot of my personal ethos on how I manage my day, the impact I want to have on my family, which then leads to bigger impact in the community. A lot of it has come from being alongside the other men in Front Row Dads. There's about
Yeah.
600 of us. There's probably about 120 of us in the inner circle. And then there's 40,000 people a month that listen to the podcast. And it's really just helped me centered. If we go back to my little goals checklist over here, it's really helped me realize, well, for me to show up for those date nights and to show
Mhm.
up as much for my family as I want to, like, I have to be physically healthy, right?
Mhm.
So in the last 5 years, I probably dropped 30 pounds. I look way better with my clothes off, do jujitsu, try to take advantage of that. Not surprisingly, that leads to like a more calm relationship with my kids, a better physical
Mhm.
relationship with my wife. That stuff all plays into like, now I'm more centered at work.
Mhm.
Work's going easier. That allows us to invest in other businesses. So I can't say enough good things about the Front Row Dads community.
Yeah, if you're at a place where you're stressed all the time, if you're at a place where a lot of your relationships are going the wrong way, just go move. Go move. Get outside and go move. Use your physical body, right? And just make it a commitment. Go do it, because what happens is the better you feel, the better you're going to treat other people. It's that simple. It's that
Yeah.
simple. Okay, Apogee. Apogee is a school that I think is doing amazing things. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So first of all, I got to give all the credit to my wife because she runs it. She's the one that's there every day. But a couple of years ago, like I said, we're back and forth to LA and Las Vegas a lot, and just looking at the public school system in LA and the public school system in Las Vegas, it neither was an option. But
Yeah.
what wasn't going to happen? So we tried a private school, which they definitely serve their place in the community environment. But what we found is, my daughter in preschool, kindergarten, and my son in first grade, a lot of private schools, their notoriety and their credentials come from, you're on the Ivy League track, right? You're going
Yeah.
to be paying $20,000 a year, or in LA, some private schools are $30,000 a year.
Mhm.
It's really like a peacocking device for the parents, where it's like, my kid reads 2 grade levels ahead and we're on the Harvard track by third grade. That didn't work for my son. My son likes playing with his hands. He does not want to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day and be 2 grade levels ahead on reading. He's probably like a grade level behind on reading, and we don't really care because he'll figure it out, right? Like
Yeah.
he's exceptional in other areas. He's bilingual. He's really big for his age, so he's pretty athletic. He's great with his hands. He's a kind kid. I don't care if he's 6 months behind on math. And so through this crazy convergence of events, and I won't go into the whole backstory, but I had a friendship with a guy named Matt Boudreau. He was on my podcast. They were opening this school called Apogee, which is kind of a spinoff of a lot of stuff that we know: Montessori, Waldorf, Acton.
Mhm.
Basically, this way of learning where, one, you believe in mastery, And two, we believe on like kids should be kids. So our kids at Apogee, they work out 2 or 3 times a day. They never do like curriculum for more than an hour at a time, because you've had kids. Good luck trying to keep a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old engaged in phonics or math for 4 hours at a time. It's just a fool's
Not going to
errand,
happen.
right?
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, like we've beat kids into submission where it's like, oh my God, these kids need to be on psychotropic drugs or something. And that definitely serves its place for a small cross section of kids. But most kids just need to be kids. They learn, they need to do the Montessori method of playing with their hands and touching things and feeling things and interacting with their environment. And so Apogee, the goal is every child's registered as a homeschooler. They can be in or out of school. They can get 90% of the curriculum they need for the, what my grandmother would have called reading, writing, arithmetic, the 3 R's. They can get most of that on an iPad in an hour to 2 hours a day. And then the rest of the time is project-based learning, Socratic learning. So like every morning when they walk in, the guide, they don't even have teachers, the guide asks a guiding question. And then as young as 5 or 6 years old, these kids are having Socratic discussions about like, how do you feel? What did that make you think about? And one of the like proudest moments for me as a father is every time we go to dinner with couples that are in town, either from Front Row Dads, or I take my kids to business meetings, they're 6 and 8 years old. Every parent comments on like, oh, your daughter who's 6 talks to me like an adult. Like she asked me, what was the best part of your day? What was the most interesting part of your day? Not just because you taught her those are the questions asked. She was legitimately interested. And it's all from that Apogee environment of like discussion-based learning, Socratic methodology, project learning. So like the way that we do it is 6 weeks on, 1 week off, 6 weeks on, 1 week off. But at the end of every 6 weeks, the parents are required to come to the studio, and every parent from 5 to 11 in the school that we open, they have a project that they have to present on, right? So like the first 6-week segment was everybody had to design their coat of arms, their code. And through all of that, they learned about medieval history. Like what was the code of the knights? Who were the knights of the round table? How did we end up building a constitution in America? Because they had to build a constitution for their classroom. And the kids are just getting such a better experience versus sit down, here's the rules of the class, here's 5 handouts you have to have done in the next hour. It's like, I mean, that works for some kids, does not work for mine and the other kids that we've attracted.
And when
right now, we're filming this at 10:45.
Yeah.
Right now, there's 20 kids in our gym doing jujitsu for the next hour, and then they'll go back to school. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like that's a better use of time.
It's a better use of time. And if you break it up like that, they don't go downhill in terms of productivity and focus, right? During that last 3 hours of that 4-hour stretch. It's just not the way that it should be done. And we've taken what should be done and packed it into something that's traditional, and traditional just doesn't work anymore. Let's be honest. It just doesn't. So the fact that they rethought it the way they did, and and you guys are reenacting it the way you are, is powerful, man. It's really, really powerful. Let's talk about coaching for just a second, because we're just about out of time. So if somebody is listening to this and they are looking for coaching in the mortgage space, how can they reach you?
Yeah, easy. Scott at Consolidated Coaching. On all the social medias, I'm Scott L, as in Lambert. That's my middle name, but Scott L Groves. I always make a joke. I'm like, the L either stands for lover or loser, depending what you think about me. On all the social medias, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, I'm at Scott L Groves, or just go to consolidatedcoaching.com. If your kids aren't thriving in their current environment, check out to see if there's an Apogee, Apogee school in your area, or go open one. I mean, we took our community of friends, our community of jujitsu people. We started with like 20 founding families, and we just started the school. And my wife, who has a lot of background in nonprofits and after school programming, and then her partner, Andrea, who is a former teacher, they're just like, they just started it, right? And our partner, Andrea, what's funny is she was like a 3rd grade or 6th grade teacher, and she was just kind of in the system. And then when her kids were born, she kind of took a step back and looked at it from the 30,000 foot view. And she's like, is this the environment I would want my kids in? And she was like, hell no. I got to look for other options. So my wife and her started the school, and it's been a huge blessing for the kids, for our community. And one day it'll be profitable. So
that's awesome, buddy. Scott Gross, thank you so much for being our guest for the second time on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been awesome, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.